Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for watching this e-learning lesson. Today's lesson is focused on social studies and focus on the skill set known as the surprise question. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mr. Pang, and thank you for staying with me for I guess maybe the next 20 or 30 minutes, all right, as I explore how to do the surprise question, what are some processes to follow, and some answering techniques to use. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing is that surprise questions SBQ actually sound like this. They tend to start with, are you surprised by source A? Um, how surprised are you by source A? Are you not surprised by source A? Does source A surprise you? So the keyword tends to fall under the word surprise. So what does the word surprise actually mean? Now the word surprise essentially is an emotional response. You are surprised at something when you feel shock or astonishment at what is happening. And as a result of something that is unexpected. So we'll talk more about this later. But in general, when answering basically a are you surprised question towards a particular source, the process that we use essentially is threefold. We first look at the content of the source itself. If they're asking us, are you surprised by source A? Then we first look at what source A actually says. So it's largely inferential. Second, in order to check whether we are surprised, we might cross-refer what source A says initially to another source, right? And here we're checking for similarities and differences based on content again. Lastly, we can look again at what source A is saying, and this time focus on giving it a reliability check. Usually, when we tackle a source and we're asking whether we are surprised, we tend to look at whether it has any form of biasness. We check its tone, its purpose, whether there's any motive or intention, and its provenance. And in most cases, when we apply the reliability check, we're looking out to check whether the source is unreliable. Because if the source is unreliable, then whatever it says usually will not make us surprised because it already has a motive that or intention that it wants to achieve. So the process largely flows in this way. So in order to attempt to answer a surprise question, you look at the content of the source itself first, you cross-refer it to other sources, and then you check its reliability. So let's go into detail, all right? So usually when you talk about the surprise question, okay, to have an emotional response like this character here, you must see something that is unexpected, which means that there's already an expectation that you perceive in your mind. And when the event happens or the situation unfolds or when you read the source, that new information that you're getting is completely unexpected and therefore leads to you having a shock or having an astonished response, and that makes you surprised. So for example, if you ordered a plate of char kway teow from the school canteen, all right, and you paid only $2, and you receive a mountain or a truckload of it on your plate, with I don't know, with additional toppings, you will be surprised because in your mind, what's perceived is that you just receive the normal plate of char kway teow that you're really used to. But what you got was something completely unexpected. So that lends us very nicely to the idea that in answering the surprise question, you must understand the logic of what we call expectation versus reality. So again, I have an example here. Whenever we submit our homework, all right, the expectation is we have a lot of time to do it. But in reality, the given time actually is pretty short. Yes, sometimes you give an assignment, you think you have 5 days to complete it, and it looks like a lot of time. But when you factor in your CCAs, you factor in basically your other subjects and your other commitments, your social life, your gaming life, you realize that the time that you have left actually to complete the assignment is pretty limited. So in that instance, then expectation versus reality. So what is expectation based on? Now, expectation is based on the provenance of the source, the contextual knowledge that you already have in your mind, and the background information that's provided at the start of a source package. So if you pay attention to these three things, this would form a perceived notion in your mind, even prior to reading the source, which means you already have something that's You already have a certain expectation. And when you read the source, that's when the reality comes, right? When you read the source for what it says, based on the evidence in the source and based on your inference from the source, that is the reality. So if you use my analogy again, the plate of char kway teow that you ordered, all right, how it looks like when you receive it from the canteen vendor, that's the reality. Prior to receiving the char kway teow, based on what you know about the canteen store, the provenance, based on your experiences of eating at the canteen store, your contextual knowledge, and based on the picture of the meal that's found on the on the menu, right? That's your background information. So you already have a perceived expectation, and then when you receive the meal, you will meet the reality. And when they match, that's when you will not be surprised. And when they challenge each other, that's when you might find yourself to be surprised. So if I were to just pull this up, I think it make it clearer for you guys. So in general, when expectation meets reality, you will not be surprised. And when expectation challenges reality, you will be surprised. So we're going to use a case study for you to better understand this when we apply this to sources. Yeah. So let's look at something that's very current. Let's look at source A. This is from the Straits Times, published on March 27, 2020. So very, very recent. And it says here that America, or the USA, now has the most confirmed COVID-19 cases in the world. So based on reading this source, this is the current reality. Based on the evidence in this source, right here, this line, and your inference, you can infer that America, of course, very directly, has the highest number of COVID-19 cases. So this is a very simplistic source. And the question is, therefore, are you surprised? Now, based on the only limited content that you have here, so we're going to use the assumption that there's nothing else that you read. You might argue that you are not surprised when you talk about using the content of the source itself. You're not surprised because whatever you're reading is expected, because the spread of COVID-19 is rampant. That's what you're hearing in the news today. That's what that's what the general consensus or the general dialogue is about all the time. So when you read a news like this, and USA has the most confirmed COVID-19 cases in the world, then you might argue that it is unexpected and therefore you're not surprised. And this is largely based on basically what the source is saying, that the spread of COVID-19 is large and rampant. So at this level, we call it a very basic response to the surprise question, because all you're doing so far is using your inference of the source. Now, what if I provided you with additional information? All right. So for example, you had background information that was provided earlier on that shows you this. So this is a study by Statista, or what we call the Global Health Security Index. So it's basically a study of all countries and how well they can fight with epidemics or pandemics in general. And this was a study done in 2019, so very recent actually, just last year. And in this study, USA, so very interesting fact right down here. Let me bring up the zoom in, right? So in this study, America, okay, has 83.5%, meaning in yellow that it is the best, most prepared country in the world, all right, to be prepared for fighting an epidemic. So America is number one. So bear that in mind, all right, okay? So that's the background information. And let's add a dash of source B. So imagine I give you an additional source B. All right, this is published in February 26. All right, okay. So Donald Trump speaking to the American public, all right, and actually saying that the risk of COVID-19 in America is very low, thanks to let me just bring it up here. All right, thanks to actions taken by the government, like travel restrictions on Chinese travelers. Because of all we've done, the risk to American people remains very low. So this is something that Donald Trump was saying at the start of February. Okay, and throw in another source, source C, which is basically another Straits Times report that comments that the Wuhan virus in China, or COVID-19, was getting stronger day by day. All right. So recap, three new pieces of information. The first one is the background information telling you that USA is the best equipped country in the world to deal with an epidemic. Second one, Donald Trump saying that America has a very low chance of actually having an outbreak of COVID-19. And the third source saying that COVID-19 is getting stronger. So now, with the addition of these three pieces of information, a background information and two additional sources, you have what we now call an expectation. Yes? Because these three pieces of information have now given you a general expectation that you have before reading the source. So if you were to have this background information in the back of your mind, you read source B and you read source C, and now we ask you, study source A, are you surprised by this source? Which argues that America has the most confirmed COVID-19 cases in the world. Our response might sound like this. So using the skills of cross-reference, are we surprised? Yes. We are surprised because it's challenged, all right, by the background information that America is the best prepared country in the world to deal with an epidemic. So if it's the best prepared country in the world, our expectation is that America shouldn't have a high number of COVID-19 cases. But the reality shown in source A is that currently America has the highest head count, and that therefore makes us very surprised. Yes, because what we are reading, the reality, is challenged by the expectation that we have. Right? So what we're reading is unexpected. Second, we have another source that says that Donald Trump declares that the threat is low. So in source B, Donald Trump actually said that the risk of USA contacting COVID-19 was actually very low. So again, that was the expectation that was created here. Right? So if you allow me to just write this down. So basically, the expectation created by both the background information and source B is challenged by the reality, all right, that is found in source A. So pardon my horrible writing. So because the reality is challenged by the expectation, or the expectation is challenged by reality, therefore we are surprised. Now, conversely, you can argue that you're not surprised by the source because it's supported by source D, all right, which claimed that COVID-19, that the spread of COVID-19 was getting stronger, all right. So I apologize, right? This should be actually source D. So in a nutshell, if I use this as a quick recap again, all right. When we read the particular source, source A, and it says that USA has the most confirmed COVID-19 cases in the world, this is the reality provided by the source. And we have to check it against our current expectation, what we expected to have read. And again, the expectation can be created by the background information or other sources. And that is why when we look at the other sources, the fact that America was supposedly the best prepared country in the world, that Donald Trump said the threat was low, and that is why we can argue that yes, we are surprised by source A because whatever is being shown, right, challenges the expectation that we had. And conversely, you can argue that it's not expected, so you're not surprised because whatever is happening is supported by source D. So that's what happens when you use the skill of cross-reference. So how about the higher level skill of using the provenance or checking reliability? So I'm going to use a different source this time. I'm going to look at source D. So this source says China spins the tale that American army started the coronavirus. So after criticizing American officials for politicizing the pandemic, Chinese officials have flooded unfounded theories that America was the source of the virus. So this is a source that claims that China is spinning tails, all right, or making false accusations that America was the one that started the coronavirus. So to give you further information about source Source D's provenance says that this source comes actually from the New York Times, which means it's published from an American perspective, from an American newspaper, a very popular one, in fact. The context, of course, is that this source was published in a moment where there were largely increasing cases of COVID-19 in America. And so there's a slight teacher bias in the sense that I'm picking a source to show you what unreliability actually means. So based on the provenance and the context, knowing that this source is published by with an American perspective, we can then ask ourselves whether this source um, has any biasness, has any motive that it intends to achieve. So using the reliability check, we can argue that in reading source D, we are not surprised because in trying to blame the Chinese or saying that the Chinese are making false accusations, that the Chinese are liars essentially in claiming that the COVID-19 virus started in America or started by the Americans, we can claim it's unreliable because first, it is biased, right? We can come from the perspective that it is a American view from the New York Times and therefore carries a certain biasness. And second, we can argue that there's a general motive, right? If you check the tone of the words used, if you check the language that's being used, you can generally get a sensing that the motive here is to discredit China or to discredit the reputation of the Chinese government. And you can allude, of course, to your contextual understanding that right now American and Chinese relationships are not exactly at the best of stages. So based on this, right, we would argue that the source is unreliable. And because the source is unreliable, whatever it says, whatever trashing it does essentially of the Chinese government is completely expected, and therefore we are not surprised. So at the end of the day, no, we are not surprised because the source is unreliable due, all right, to these two possible reasons. And this is what happens when you use a reliability check. So I hope this has made it clearer for you guys in helping to understand basically how to attempt the SBQ surprise question. So in a nutshell, whenever expectation matches reality, you are not surprised. Whenever expectation challenges reality, you are surprised. And just need to remember that the process that we follow, all right, is that we check basically what the source is saying first, the source in question for its content. We can then cross-refer the source to other sources or even to the background knowledge that we have or to our contextual knowledge to check for similarities and differences to see if it meets our expectations or see if it meets the expectations. And we can check the source's reliability through biasness, tone, purpose, and provenance. Again, to check whether the source is unreliable. Again, if it's unreliable, therefore whatever it says would be expected and therefore not making us surprised. So spend some time again to pause at any moment of this video to re-clarify your thoughts. And if there are greater questions, you can seek your SS teachers for greater clarification or raise a question uh, on the YouTube channel. So thank you for watching, and I hope it helps.